Yeah. You gotta watch getting in the cars of strangers these days.
Stop, you're scaring me.
Scaring you? You're not scared. You don't know shit about being scared, little girl, not yet. You want scared? You want scared? Have a look behind you. Have a look. Yeah, how about that, huh? Look again, goddammit.
No.
Go ahead, look
No.
again.
I think I want you to stop and let me out.
You think? Or do you know?
This story happened in the fall of 2017. My name is Nadia, and I was 27 years old back then. I live in Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania, with my two friends Nicole and Christina. We rented a house together and shared the same car, which was a 2009 Lexus. My friends and I are very close and are like sisters. This arrangement would not have worked any other way. One day we wanted to go on a road trip together, so we decided to drive from Drexel Hill to another town called Butler. At first, things were going pretty well. Along the way, we would make stops to explore the countryside, take pictures, and enjoy the scenery. It was fall, and it got dark pretty quick. On top of that, our gas-guzzling V8 needed a refill, so we had no choice but to stop at a gas station. We spotted one in the middle of nowhere. Visually, this gas station looked creepy as hell. I thought it might have been abandoned when I first saw it. We pulled up next to a gas pump, and I was about to start filling the tank when a beat-up white van with tinted windows pulled into the gas station parking lot. As soon as I saw it, I immediately got a bad feeling. Christina had to go into the convenience store to use the bathroom. "Do you really have to go? This place looks sketchy as hell." "It's an emergency. There's no need to be paranoid. I'll be quick." "Alright, just hurry up. Don't waste your time scrolling through your phone like you always do." Christina then went inside the store. As soon as she did, the driver exited the white van and followed her inside. My spidey sense told me that something was about to go down, so I decided to go inside as well. As soon as I walked in, I heard Christina screaming. The driver of the van was dragging Christina to what looked like a back door. I quickly got out my pocket knife and stabbed the man in the back. The man screamed and let go of Christina. I used the opportunity to grab Christina's hand and pull her to her feet. The man staggered and struggled to pull the knife out of his back. He was so angry that his face was red. He then let out a shout of pure rage and chased us out of the store. Luckily for us, we were able to make it back to the car. I put it into drive and drove out of there as quickly as possible. In my rearview mirror, I saw the white van from before pull out of the gas station parking lot and began to follow us. Fortunately for us, our Lexus had a more capable engine, so I put the pedal to the floor and we eventually lost him. His busted-up kidnap mobile wasn't able to keep up. We went to the police station to file a report, but we never heard anything back. There were no employees present when all of this went down inside the store, and this was definitely the kind of place that may or may not have working security cameras. We were all pretty shaken up about this. It's not every day that you see one of your best friends literally being dragged away by a stranger. But thankfully, I was able to intervene and save her. This story happened to me when I was only 10 years old. I grew up in a popular suburb of Phoenix, Arizona. We lived in the third house on a street that was just off the neighborhood's main road. My house had an enclosed front porch with a basketball hoop and a bike rack. One day I was home by myself and decided to go to the local park. This was probably around 4 p.m. or so. At this time, our neighborhood wasn't fully developed, so having a lot of traffic wasn't common. My sister and I have always been paranoid about sketchy white vans because of the programs they showed us at school. So when I noticed one cruising down the main road, well, I thought it was strange, but I figured it might have been a construction worker and continued. I was one of those kids who would ride his bike around just to explore the area, so I was never too worried in my neighborhood. If someone did come after me, I knew all the best routes to lose someone. Anyways, I took my usual path and went down a side street through a cul-de-sac instead of the main road. When I arrived at the park, I noticed another neighborhood kid named Parker, who was in the open field next to the playground. After a while of hanging out with him, I figured that my parents would probably be home from work by now. When I first left the park, I realized I had forgotten my water bottle. It was a tin Spider-Man water bottle, and that was a big deal to 10-year-old me. There was no way I was leaving that behind. After turning around, I was soon back at the hilltop overlooking the playground and the field. Parker was nowhere to be seen. I had been gone for maybe 30 seconds. I then saw the white van from before, parked on the side of the road near the playground. My heart sank once I saw Parker's bike lying on the ground next to the van with one of its wheels still turning. I froze up. I was pretty sure whoever was driving the van saw me. I quickly turned around and sped down the sidewalk and booked it home. Once I got back to my house, I made sure I didn't leave my bicycle by the front door or the porch. Instead, I threw it over the back gate so it wouldn't be visible from the road. After this, I rushed inside and locked the door. I was covered head to toe in sweat. After about 20 seconds of catching my breath, I decided to peer out through the peephole, and for a split second, my heart stopped. I could see the white van slowly making its way down the main road, driving past my street and out of sight. Now, at the time, I thought that Parker had been kidnapped and the white van was now hunting for me. And even now, I don't think that was an unreasonable conclusion to come to. But I would be lying to you if I said that there were reports of a missing child, and the police were called in to investigate, and my parents had to stand next to me while I told a detective what I saw. But the truth is, I never saw Parker being pulled into the van. It is entirely possible that the driver could have said something to him, and he got scared and ran off without his bike. That wouldn't have made front-page news, but I still feel like I would have heard about it. Honestly, I didn't know Parker that well. I saw him around the park sometimes, but I wouldn't say that we were friends. Point being, he could have moved away, or might have just been visiting. And as creepy as it was seeing that white van slowly driving down the road, it's unlikely they would be driving like that after just having kidnapped a child. I don't know what happened to Parker, because after that day, I never saw him or that white van ever again. The lesson here is to always be aware of your surroundings and to teach your kids to do the same, because you never know what could happen, even in the places where you feel the safest. I'm 19 and currently attending university. This encounter happened to me when I was in secondary school, around age 14 or 15. It was an IT lesson, so I was doing the usual, playing games and messing around with instant messenger, until the class was interrupted by 2 police officers. After the excitement died down, they proceeded to tell us that we needed to be careful. There was reports of a middle-aged man driving around this area in a white Toyota van, harassing girls around our age and telling them to come for a ride. A few days had passed since the police warned us. I would usually finish up at around 2:35 p.m., but I decided to stay later that day to catch up on some homework so I left school around 4 p.m. Of course, when I got to the bus station, it had already left. The bus driver was a real jackass. So I decided to walk home. If only I had known what was going to happen that day, I would have called my mom to come pick me up. I would say the walk home was about 30 minutes. I was about 3/4 of the way home when I reached this long stretch of road that ran through a few fields with a small path alongside for bikes. This road was dark and had no streetlights. Since it was winter, it was already dark by this point. I was about halfway down the road. A few cars had passed me, but no big deal. That's when I saw some headlights approaching me. I didn't take much notice at first, as I assumed it was another passerby. That's when I see a white Toyota van slowly pass me and pull into a driveway that led to a farmhouse. This was about 200 meters in front of me, so I ended up walking past the van. I'm obviously on high alert by now. I hear the door swing open, and I turn around to see this tall, sketchy-looking man stepping out of the van and just stands there, staring at me. At this point, I'm ready to get the hell out of there, and I sprint to either the next farmhouse or the end of the road. But I quickly realized that these two options may be too far out of reach. I turn around again to see the man coming toward me. I bolted it as fast as possible. I was wearing one of those stupid pencil skirts we had to wear. I could hear the man running behind me. He was fast too. The road was veering to the right. As soon as I got around the bend, I was out of sight for a few seconds. I literally threw myself into this large bramble bush and sat there hiding and waiting. A few moments go by, and he's nowhere to be seen. I was sure that he was right behind me, so after about 10 to 15 minutes, I thought it was safe to pull myself out of the bush. I was covered in scratches and scrapes. At the time, I didn't care. My main priority was hiding. I began walking down the road again. I was nearing the streetlights and my neighborhood, so I thought I would be okay. Until I saw the white van pass me again. I sprinted all the way back home, and as I got onto my road, I saw him passing by again, this time in the opposite direction. As soon as I got back, I told my parents, and they called the police and reported it. They didn't find him that night, but he was arrested a few days later, lurking outside our school, attempting to talk to the girl students again. I assume he was convicted, as I've never seen him again. Sometimes I still wonder what was going through his mind that night, and what would have happened if he got a hold of me. What exactly were his intentions? I think I know the answer, but it still makes my skin crawl. When I was a kid, I was hanging out at this place called the Pinecone Forest, which is what the neighborhood kids would call the small patch of trees on the side of the road. I was picking bark off one of the trees to pass the time, waiting for my friend Frankie to finish his homework so we could play together. Out of nowhere, it seemed, a man came up to me. I could smell him before I saw him. He reeked of stale cigarette smoke. I was a bit scared to even look at him. He wasn't very old, but one of his eyes was cloudy, and his teeth and fingernails were stained yellow. My mom taught me to be nice to people, so I faked a smile and said hello. "What you doing?" The smell of his breath was the worst. I'm picking bark off this tree." "You shouldn't do that. That's like picking off a tree's skin. How would you feel if somebody peeled off your skin?" He said this while lightly pinching my arm with his sharp yellow fingernails. "I don't know," I replied, and took my arm back. Just then, Frankie's mother called me to the door and told me to come and wait inside. I didn't think anything of the whole thing at the time. Yesterday, when I was visiting my sister's house with my mom, watching my son and nephews play around in the yard, I remembered this encounter and brought it up to my mom. She had this look of, I don't know, guilt maybe? She said it was probably time that I knew the whole story. She thought I had forgotten about the whole encounter, so she never brought it up to me. First, you should know that the neighborhood I grew up in is a small, tight-knit community. Everyone knew everyone there, and there was no reason for an outsider to be there, unless they were visiting someone. Anyway, this is what happened. Frankie's mom, Sonia, noticed a white van with no windows parked on the side of the road. She didn't recognize it, but figured that it was someone visiting one of her neighbors. Sonia later told the police that the van had been there all morning and afternoon. She was kind of keeping an eye on it. She said it gave her a bad feeling. Her house had a huge window in front, facing the pine cone forest, and the van was parked next to it. She saw me waiting for Frankie and kept a constant eye on the van, while holding the phone just in case. She then saw the man exit the back of the van and walk up to me. As soon as she saw him grabbing my arm, she called the cops right away. It was then that she told me to come inside. The cops stopped the man outside the neighborhood. In the back of his van were binoculars, a Polaroid camera, and pictures of me taped all over the walls and ceiling. The photos were of me at school, my grandparents' house, at the bank with my mom. But the story doesn't end there. He had a key to a storage unit on him. Inside the unit, they found a cabinet full of knives. And I'm talking about a lot of knives in all shapes and sizes. There was also a few books on the human anatomy, obstetrical equipment, duct tape, and 10 empty 5-gallon buckets. In the middle of this unit was an old bed that was used to restrain mental patients, so it had wrist and ankle straps. The entire inside of the unit was covered in plastic wrapping. Last my mom heard about him, he was locked away in a high-security mental institution for the criminally insane.
Hey everyone, this is your Uncle Unit. Thank you so much for checking out my video. If you have a story that you would like me to narrate on this channel, please send it to my email, unit522submit@gmail.com. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future content. And if you would like to support this channel even further, you can check out my merch store. There's a link for that in the description. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope you stay tuned for the next video. Until then, never forget. There's always a reason to be afraid.